Good afternoon. I hope you're having a really good evening. Uh, Let me show you what I've got so far, at least kind of like how I wrapped my brain around the process. And yeah, I used to download manually too. And I noticed this. I actually noticed it because I usually keep up with downloads almost every day, and I noticed this back. Oh man, the minute it happened, like the day it happened, and because I think I had downloaded some files, and then I noticed other files didn't have any identifying information other than just a file name. And I waited for a few days to see how it played out, and then I realized that no matter what the outcome was, how the files were named, I needed another solution. I kind of like to, me personally, I kind of like to have a little bit of independence from things. Um, it's been my experience that a lot of times, the way that kinda like my brain might work, or I might flow things together, in almost like a workflow, kinda like the way I would think or deduce or logically produce, uh you know, steps or something that leads to, a conclusion or something I'm trying to do, it works a certain way. And I think years ago, many, many years ago, I had thought, I mentioned to somebody, hey, could we do this? It would make it easy, make it really cool on me. And back then, people weren't really that receptive to, it was a much different environment. You had the doers, and then you had the creators, and then the users. And then, I came from IT from years ago, so I was much different than all of that. But the particular the environment that I'm referring to, it was like, we build stuff, you get what you get, and if you ask any questions, obviously you're of low mental aptitude. So that was many, many years ago, and I'm like, you know what? I don't have time for this. I'll just do it myself. And that's how really all this started. And so when the name changed, I thought, okay, I'm gonna go ahead and do this on my own. I think when I posted in the forums, I put, I'm gonna move forward, which means I'm not gonna really try to argue the point. I'm not sure what the direction is, or how they were looking at things, but I'm gonna go ahead and just kind of keep things together in my workflow. So let me show you what I have so far. So this is pretty much it. It's basically a very, very common UI. I wrote some libraries that allows me to generate a framework, and the framework is just copy and paste. So you just copy and paste it. All the data is the same. Event capture is all done in custom libraries. It's put in an event queue, and then the main applications or the interface can then loop through that queue and decide whether it wants to process that event or not. If not, it ignores it. And that makes it much more easy for me to develop things quickly. So that's how this came to be. So that's why it'll look the same as all my other applications that I made past a certain point, because it was designed to really facilitate faster development. Unfortunately, the libraries can become bulky because then they contain a lot of things that are most common across a lot of applications rather than targeting a specific app. But it does make development much easier. But this is what I have so far. And what it does is it actually creates a request. It's just an HTTP. It's a request, and it's like a URL. And when it sends that URL across the internet, the Nexus gets it, and then it has to parse the headers. There's certain information in that packet that it gets that literally says, "This is who I am, this is what I want, and this is my authorization." And the authorization generally comes from one of two places, from what I understand. Now, this is stuff that I had to kind of throw together in a matter of days, about a week and a half ago. So, and this is just kind of like what I have working. And just to kind of give you kind of like a foreshadowing, they're moving towards more GraphQL, which this is more of an endpoint. It's like a REST endpoint kind of a thing. So, and all that's new to me. So so I hope I don't mislead you or misrepresent any of the things. But anyways, That's what it's moving to, so I have to put the GraphQL in there, but I wanted to get things up and working, so the way that I looked at it from a programmer's point of view is, yeah, it's more efficient to jump right into the current method, but I was never a web programmer, so I have to kinda learn as I go, and I have to have something working ASAP, so the fastest solution for me was to get some reference material, build on that, make sure that it works, and then once I understand the process, then I can move over to GraphQL, and GraphQL does have less throughput. So it requires less data to be transferred to the end user to get specifically what you want. Whereas now it's in, different information's in different JSON files, and GraphQL, if I understand it correctly, can grab pieces of the fields from these different JSON files and create a JSON file on the fly and send it directly to the end user. So that's kind of like, so it's sending and receiving less data. Um, so that's kinda like how this works, but initially, it has to have authorization, so to call that API, it really wants to know who you are. So you need an API key for that, and there's a couple ways I can get that from what I understand. I can register the application so that way it gets its own API key. Therefore, anybody using it it has that API key, or the end user can use their API key. And from what I've read, if you're not a premium user, if you're not a premium user, then you have to download it from the website, which means you need the web link. And so and I'll show you how to set this up. I do use the web link, but then I don't have to have the web link as a premium user. So let me kind of, I'll kind of get to that and show you that. Um, but that's how it makes requests. And if you actually looked at the code, you would actually see over here, there is let me get this. I'll just leave that there for a second. What we can do is I'll show you the actual code. I can show you the actual download code. It's right here. So, in effect, it looks for a URL. So, let's see. So, basically what it does is okay. So, what it does is when you request a file, this is the actual request, and I pull the request from a text file. It's just a localization, and then I put in this particular information, game ID, mod ID, and file ID. And then I actually try to get I send the request to the server. Then I check to see what kind of request I get back. So these are like all the little custom routines I've did to kind of, make things more modular. And then I get a JSON file, and then I have to parse that JSON file. I have to parse that data, and what that does, that gives me a list of download mirrors. From there, I can say, "Well, what's your default mirror?" Because over here, I actually have where you can select your default mirror, and it doubles this up for some reason. I'm not sure why. It's a bug in there somewhere. But see, I can change my default mirror to any location that I want, and then I get this from the actual Nexus itself. So, it does, that's how I that's and I so you get this list of mirrors that's for the file, and then you have to pick out the mirror, and that is the specific download link that you have. And then from that, you have to request the file, and that's what this does. And see, that's the HTTP header I'm talking about. You have a client, you set up the header, and part of that header includes the API key or what they're calling the authorization ID. And that's what you get when you sign in. Now, that requires signing into the Nexus with a web page and capturing the OAuth key. I haven't put that in yet. I want to take a look at that a little bit closer. But the easiest thing for me to do is use my API key. So I can just go right online to the Nexus and I can see what my API key is. And then I just copy and paste it in, punch and go. And that's what you see here. Because once it recognizes authorization to use that API, to use that endpoint, that REST endpoint API on the Nexus server, then this will actually come up here, and then it'll actually say, "Welcome, you're good to go." They can say anything you want. It's like a text file. You can change it. And then what you do is you make the request. And then from the request headers, remember I was talking about the headers? So you get a response back, and then you get the headers actually tell you a little bit about. So you send this request to the server, and it sends back a reply. And then that header has information, like it tells you. If you look here, I actually have this little thing down here. It tells you how many requests you can make per hour because there is a limit, how many requests per day, and then there's a little green part here. And then as you make requests, this starts to fill up. So that way you can kind of keep track of it as you go. But that's how you log in, and that's what the API key is for. It basically says you are authorized to do this. If you're not a premium user, you do have an API key, but from what I understand, you have to go to the web page to download it rather than getting a direct download link. I'm not positive about that, but that's what I understand. So I'll have to take a look at that in a bit. So as for myself, I think I finally, after all these years, I finally went ahead and paid for Nexus 'cause I thought, "Okay, I'm gonna go and pay for this." And, so that's how I kinda approached it. So it was kind of a single focal point on solving the problem, and I hadn't had a chance to really broadly look at it. Okay, so that's how you get into here. So once you're in here, you're good to go. And you can actually build your own personal databases. It doesn't use MD5, instead, it uses SHA-256. Nexus uses MD5 for its file content hashes. I'm assuming that'll work fine. I just use SHA-256. Big files can take a while, so you wouldn't really focus on that. You're not really gonna import file hash. Check for updates is something I just put in. That one was interesting, in the fact of how the data is stored. So I had to actually parse the JSON files, and I had to really do it like in 3 phases. So I had to go in and literally grab the updates for a mod, and then I had to locate my current mod, and then I had to check the old and new file IDs to make sure that I got the latest ID, and then once I got the latest ID, I had to see, do I already have that file? But to do that, I have to look at the legacy file names because I think before the change, everything had dashes, and I have a lot of files that have dashes in them. And then I have the new format, which is my own custom format. You can set your format however you want, but this is how I have mine set so that it's basically the file name, version, mod, dash, file ID. So that way it takes you specifically, you can know specifically which file it is. And that makes it easier to try and locate things specifically for that file. But with the mods, so what I had to do is actually download the update list, find my current mod in there somewhere, which means I had to parse the file name. And luckily, I only have 2 ways to parse it. It's either the legacy way with the dashes, or it's the custom way with the underscores. Because I use underscores. I don't replace every space with an underscore because that's more like something a Unix system would do, or Linux. I don't do that. It makes it a little bit more busy for my mind and my eyes to read. So I just keep it simple, and I put the version first because visually I wanna see versions in sequence, and then the rest of the information, which is the mod ID and the file ID, is used, referentially to try to find things on the fly without having to query the Nexus, because the idea is I don't wanna query the Nexus constantly for data. That's just a lot of network usage that's unnecessary if I can discern, or, discern things actually from the file name itself. And once I did that, so then I have the update file. I have to see if I have it, and then if I don't, then I can literally generate a download link. I can request a download for that file. It'll give me the links, and then I can go through this whole routine here. So that's what the check for updates does. And what I have is I literally have a list of files that's in my mod. You can also use folders too. It doesn't care. It doesn't really care about the file extension. And what it does, it parses that name, and then it says, okay, this is what I'm going to try and look up. If I can't figure out what the file ID and mod ID is from the name, then I'm going to try to look it up. And that works for legacy because remember, all the custom stuff I has that in the file name, so I can get that directly. That saves me a lot of processing time and a lot of headache. So when I do that, I can automatically download, and I've tested that, that works fine. Although it does pick up files that are not named with the legacy format and are not custom, so there's a transition period. If I try to use a transition file, it'll think there's an update because it cannot find the file name. Um, and the old legacy file names don't have the file ID in it. They only have the mod ID. So I can't really look at an old new situation with file IDs in the list. So what I've done is there's actually another thing in here called rename folder files. And the way that these functions are called is it uses this menu here that you're looking at. That's a text file that the end user updates, and you can make it however you want. And the libraries have a lot of different methods in it. So and they do different things. So you literally can just quickly add your own function or call your own function. All you have to do is put that in the main event pipeline, whatever the option code is, and then the menu calls the option code with parameters. So it's a way of bringing to the surface what the methods do. It links the end user to the actual method. It's just a very probably some would consider a very archaic way, but it's cool. So you can rename the files, and that's what I'm doing. So I have to take all the files during that time period, and you just block rename them. And you can, in the way the parameters work, the reason I was explaining the thing about the text file is you can either specify what game you want to rename for, or it goes by this up here. So if you wanted to change games, you literally would go over here. So you can go over here. This is like a debug window, but you can go over here and you can switch your game. So now if I go in here to do like a rename, folder files, it's going to look to the Nexus to see if, because what it basically does it does an MD5 hash check. So it'll hash the file, and then it looks under the Fallout 3, which is what we have here, because I don't really specify in this function call here, I don't really specify a parameter. You can put a parameter like Fallout 3 or Fallout 4, but I just switch here. And you can put Oblivion in there. I've got all that in there. But anyways, back onto this. So basically, all I do is hash the file, get the MD5, and then I do that exact same thing you see right over here. It's the exact same thing. I create a client. I set the headers so I have my API key in there, and I identify the program I'm using so that way the Nexus can keep statistics on it. And then I just make the call, and then I look at the response to say, did the server understand what I asked for? In other words, is the reply okay? If it's okay, then I can go about retrieving I can go about retrieving that JSON file and then looking, I can look at it. Otherwise, it'll give you an error response like 404, 403 or something. That's in here. I have a collision report. The collision report comes from the hashes that you build your database, and it tells you which different file names basically hash out to be the same SHA-256 for its contents. That'll show you which files have the exact same data in each one that are different names. Um, and then I have, if you have a download link, like if you download something here, it'll show up over here. And you can right click. It would actually say like manage download, and that moves it over to whatever folder you have designated as your download folder. And there is a conversion table that is user defined that says this is what Nexus, this is the Nexus target game. It's like they call it a game ID, but it's also called something else. The language is new to me, but the game ID might be, for example, New Vegas. The Nexus stores things under the domain of New Vegas, but on my system, I have it under Fallout space New space Vegas, not New Vegas all crammed together. So if I want to move files from my download folder that this thing is what this application here actually downloads to, I need to know where to put it. So I have a little conversion table that's set up, and it loads that conversion table. So it's like I'm going to load this up, and if that conversion table, this is when you're trying to manage them or move them. That's what manage all files does. So if I click manage all files, it basically grabs everything that was downloaded and then starts spreading it out. Because like, let's say I want to download Skyrim mods. I don't have to be in Skyrim. This doesn't have to show Skyrim up here. This literally can just show whatever I want, because I know what game it's for when I download it, because the Nexus JSON information gives you that. The download link, or the link when you click on the Nexus, it has all that information in it. So I know where it's coming from. It's just when I go to copy it out, I need to know where to put it. And that way each person can specify whatever destination they want, whatever they call their folders, wherever it is. And that allows it to be moved out. Um, and that's pretty much how download all files work. And like let's say, and the way I use it is, let's say I'm downloading things for Skyrim, and I notice that there's an updated mod that I just download. You don't see it here, but if there's a file here that shows downloaded, you can right click on it and an option will pop up here that will say manage download. And then if I select that, it automatically copies it over using that conversion table, that user specified conversion table. It's just a text file. It uses that, and then it knows where to copy it. And now when I go over to my mod manager, I can go down to the downloads files, and it will appear down there as a recent file because I actually watch for files to hit that folder, and when it does, I automatically add those to what's available to the list. I figured that was the simplest way to do it. And that's that option. And the one that I'm testing now is archive previous versions. So this is where I had to create a file short name based on one of two possible types. Either it's a legacy name or it's my file name. So in the legacy name, I look for the mod ID in the file name. But if it's my custom name, the name that I'm currently using, or that's the user can set up on their end, it actually looks for it uses the first field because it actually goes by mod ID too, because it knows the mod ID. So therefore, if you have textures in one mod and textures in another mod, it's not going to lump those two together. Okay, so that's what I'm testing now. And then search results basically allows you to have it allows a user to define in a text file multiple repositories. So as an example, let's say you have your files on 3 different hard drives, or you have them on a NAS box and locally, or you have them on just different devices around your house, storage devices. You can specify those storage devices in the game configuration, or you can specify them in I believe it's the unmanaged text file that goes with the game, and you can say these are the devices where this file can be. So like, and this is why it was important when I was on the Nexus to be able to see the file name because I can actually copy. Sorry, excuse me. I can copy and paste that file name and then I can just simply go in here and I can do a search and you get this kind of box here. So you'll get this to where you can type and you can just type and it'll show you up here the location. It doesn't show every location because if you have like 20 different drives, you don't want to show 20 different locations. You list them in priority order and it shows them the first one. It's the first one it finds, that's what it shows. And that way I can determine if I have the file so I don't waste a lot of bandwidth downloading a file I already have. Example of that would be, let's say that I've downloaded a new mod, I want to try it, but that mod has dependencies. I can then get the file name and I can look up those dependencies to see, do I have that file? I don't have to waste time and waste bandwidth downloading it again. So that's one of the things that confused me about, kind of changing the file name. That didn't make a whole lot of sense, at least on the web page, especially when it was the GUID. And I have a feeling that comes directly from from the actual mirror itself. That's the reason that hasn't changed. They just haven't got around to changing that yet. Other than that, that's about it. That's about what it does. So, and that's what I'm getting ready to do now. I'm actually getting ready to go in and get the noontime downloads. It'll give me a chance to test this and see how it works. And, yeah, and that's pretty much it. So I've got a couple more things I wanna add to it. I do wanna take a look at new files. Another thing I wanna do is I wanna be able to locate, files I've already downloaded that are newer than the ones that's currently in my game. Because as an example, I've been mostly modding and playing Skyrim right now because I played Fallout 4 for quite a few years, modded it, just kinda playing around with it. It was to me, it was more of a I didn't really care too much about the story. It's just a way it's kinda like a mental escape. It's a way to kinda hang out and just kinda be in a world where I can just chill. And that was the same for, like, World of Warcraft years ago, but it got too crazy for me. But anyways, back onto this. So, I do wanna be able to look at the file names and say, "I've already downloaded this file, and this is newer than the one you have. Therefore, you might wanna go ahead and put this in the game because 'cause I've already downloaded." I've kept up with the Fallout 4 mod, so when I go back to mine, I've already have all the newer files downloaded. I just need programmatically find them and put them in my game. That should be easy to do. I already have the code to do that now, but it's more kind of looking to the Nexus, but now I'm just gonna kinda copy that code down, strip out the Nexus code and make it more, I'm gonna look specifically for files. So I've gotta do that and, probably clean it up And other than that, that should be about it, and it should be ready to go. Like I say, the only downside is it does, to automatically download files like that, you do have to have a premium account. That's not my rule. That's just the way the Nexus set it up. I don't know if it can be possible if a person doesn't have a premium account other than going outside of the download link. But one of the things I did put in here is you can rename your folder files like I was showing you earlier. So I can download a lot of the ones that has those little tags in it, those fudgy things, whatever they call it, slug, I think they call it, which is just a compressed it's a compressed I think they took the mod ID. I think they took the game ID, mod ID, and file ID and compressed it into some kind of small little, little hash, a squid, I think they called it. Um, so you can do this and you can batch rename your files. But unfortunately, this gives them the new name. It doesn't really use the legacy name because this little squid things comes after. But you know what? Now that I think about it, I could make it so that you can specify whether you want the new file name or whether you want the legacy file name. I could probably do that. And that way, people who like to use the dashes, it would be the same. I like the new file naming system, not the one with the slug, but I like my own personal way that I have it named because I put the mod ID dash file ID. So everything that I need to identify, as they call the oh gosh, what is it called? I forget the term, the provenance of the file. I believe they used it. That's the term they used. It can determine the absolute provenance of it. It can tell what game it come from. Well, it doesn't know the game it come from other than the folder name. However, this application here does create its own meta file. And it does put the Nexus metadata in its own meta file under a description tag. So therefore, whenever you download a file, it creates a meta file for that file that has the Nexus metadata in it if I ever have to get to it. I know they're going to put that in the file. So until that happens, that's going to be in my own personal meta file. And in the meta file, it has other information like what type of file it is, the types of files it contains, mostly the extensions, things like that. Things I could use to quickly identify if I'm looking for something. I could do a quick database search and I don't have to worry about, like, if I'm looking for an ESP file, then I can literally say which one of these mods has ESPs in it, and I can look at the metadata files, which are much smaller, and I can just rip through them and say, okay, this has what I'm looking for. This has the ESPs. It doesn't say the name of the ESP, but it has the ESP in it. And then, or I can use another application I wrote that actually creates a database of what's contained in those mod files to where I can locate the specific file I want. I can locate the specific mod file by saying, "Oh, I need xyz.esp." It doesn't matter. It's whatever file. It catalogs the mods under whatever file name is contained within that mod. It's just a big old database. You can build it. It's got a little quick and dirty cheesy tool I wrote to kind of quickly build that. And then but the one I have, the little application lets you easily access that database to look it up. All right. Well, I'm gonna hop off here for a little bit. I gotta do some testing. So, but I just kind of wanted to show you a little bit of what this is, and I don't know if it's something you would be able to use or if anybody can be able to use it. I use it. Wasn't something I intended to write. It's just something that it just kind of it's just kind of one of those things that it's something you presents itself. It needs to be done, and yeah, moving forward with it. All right. I hope you have a good evening. And, I hope you get figured out, what that E tag problem is. To me, it's a handshake issue. I just don't know why there's a handshake problem. Uh, from what I understand, that's kind of like how that works. So you upload a file, it basically hashes it in some way with some kind of very unique identifier, and then sends that back to the client. The client needs to verify that what the server actually, the data the server has actually matches the data that was uploaded. So the way I think it does it is it uploads a file. The server would then send an E tag to the client, which would be the end user on the client. The client would then do whatever that hash is to say, okay, I'm not, I got your tag. I'm either going to create my own tag and compare it, or when I uploaded the file, I sent the tag with it. So I uploaded the file and then I sent a tag right along with it that says this is what it should hash out to be. So I don't know if that, e tag, if that's coming from the server end saying, okay, I got the file, but I did not get the tag with it. The connection closed before I got the tag, or I got the last packet that did not contain the tag. I'm not sure how they've coded it. So they get these packets, and then they say, okay, this is the final packet. So if it's the final packet, it needs to have the tag in it. Okay, I got the final packet. You said this file was this big. I got the last byte of it, but I don't know what the e tag is. So I'm going to send that back to the client. Which, from what you're saying, that's in the browser itself. So that's either Java, Python. I believe it's Java more than likely. So I'm not sure what would have changed there. Um, Or it comes from the client where the client is saying, "Okay, I've sent you the file and you have not sent me. You sent me a response back, but you didn't there's no tag in the header." So, again, I'm assuming because they're using the actual, if you're using manual, then I'm assuming that's the Java code within the web page itself. At least that would be my guess. Um Yeah, I don't know about the windsock. You can try it and see. I don't know if that's gonna fix the problem. I don't know if it's trying to look at an older ETAG file, but, like, trying to restart itself. I'm not really sure. I'm not sure what it's looking at. I wish I did. It's not something I really even looked at, mostly for years, I just download things, I don't really upload. I can try maybe here in a little bit. I've still got some coding I gotta do and some testing, and eventually, I'm gonna have to upload things. I've never tried it yet. So, I don't know if it's localized on your system or what might cause that. Uh, yeah, try those things and, post back and let me know, how if it worked, if it doesn't, and, hopefully we can get this thing figured out or at least try as many things as we can, success or fail, to at least try to do something until maybe somebody from the technical department can get back with you. I don't know if somebody like maybe Jim or JM Harris. I know he was kind of active. I don't know if maybe tagging somebody specifically would help get them a notification. I don't know how all that works. I would assume they're pretty loaded with just all the problems they've got because I would imagine not only do they have to fix the current situation with the software, but then they have to find a way to retro that back across that probably 2 week span where everything was just kind of just went topsy turvy. All right. Yeah, let me know if you need anything. I should be here most of the day. So just holler at me or post back, and I'm kind of in and out, and I'll definitely see it and see if there's anything maybe I can offer to help. Okay. So good luck, and I hope we can get this working.